Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Poetcast Unleashed. My name is Nico Vernaccini. I am your host. This fine episode, I have a fine guest who's a fine man, Darryl. Hey, Darryl. Darryl Bose. There you are.
Nico, how are you, mate?
I'm all right, not bad. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us about
You're
poetry
very
and life
welcome.
and whatnot.
Life, the universe, and yeah,
Everything in
well,
between. Yeah,
politics, religion, whatever.
yeah. Let's try to avoid those two topics. But we can talk about sports and how I don't understand sports. The last episode I did with Basil, as soon as we'd sort of shut off the recording, he was like, "I heard you shit talking soccer," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't get it." He's like, "That's such, it's you don't see the poetry and movement, you don't see all the little
Uh,
things, all the excitement."
who was there's a Isle of Man TT motorcycle racer who said something like, I've got better things to do with my time than spend an hour and a half watching millionaires run around in their shorts.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
I
I don't
sympathize with that
I don't
point
get
of
it
view.
either, but it's huge, and people take a lot of meaning from it and
Yeah.
invest a lot of time and yeah, a lot of emotional energy into it actually.
Absolutely. And obviously, there are things to criticize about it. Could talk about the politics, the economy of it, and so on and so forth. At the same time, it's like it's clear to me that part of the tale of football is that anyone, if you're just good enough with a ball, you could become that one of those millionaire in skimpy shorts.
It's yeah, and perhaps that's part of the mythology of it. It's sort of
Yeah.
like being born in America and anyone could become president, which of course is
Yeah.
patently untrue. But
It is. That's patently untrue. But it seems with football, the social mobility aspect of it does seem to ring true to a certain degree, right?
absolutely. But again, I can't even like speak to it in any meaningful way because it's just something that's never clicked with me.
What
It's
were you interested in instead of football? Were there other sports or
well,
other things in general?
see, I came from a family where people were obsessed with rugby league, um, which is different to rugby union. It's a different code, but it's a similar game. And I can remember the last game of rugby league I played. I was 10, and it was a freezing cold morning, and I tackled Brian Fox. His name was. I tackled him, and someone else went under him as I tackled him, and his boot came up into my face on this freeze, and I just went, "That's it. This is not fun.
Right.
There's no." It's not for me. So I
Yeah.
retired at 10. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and that's it. Then
I was more interested in like swimming and cycling. Yeah.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was a swimmer. I did water polo for years.
Okay. I never did water polo, but yeah. And you've probably got a respectable wingspan for that sort of thing.
Sure, I got broad shoulders from it, from swimming
Yeah.
and doing water polo. I'll tell you, I did it for years. I must have done it for 5, 6, maybe 7 years. I don't felt like I got any better. I was about the same level starting
Okay.
and then
So
finishing
you
because
think you
just it's
plateaued the
exhausting.
whole way? It
It's
is.
absolutely exhausting, and having to constantly sort of turn into water because you got to follow the ball and yeah, but it was
Okay,
fun.
and that's a water polo, and I'd never played water polo, so but I can understand, swimming and I was never a sprinter. Like I was an endurance sort of cyclist and um, and swimmer. I was
Mm,
never fast, but and on a bike. I mean, back in the day when I was racing, club racing, and I weighed 59 or 60 kilos, and they called me the Whippet because I was so skinny. But I was a good climber because I didn't have much weight on me.
yeah.
But yeah, so our physiques, so and you see cyclists who are great sprinters, and they got quads like sides
Yeah.
of beef. It depends how you build, what you're going to be. Yeah, so I keep knocking the table, and let's not touch that.
But you're into music and songwriting and stuff, right?
Yes,
And is that
yes, I'm into a lot. I'm
yeah?
into a lot of things, and that's sort of, I don't know. It's kept my life interesting, but it's also part of the problem that I'm interested I'm interested in so many things, and that my instinct with that in writing. On my first formal training after high school, after I backpacked around Europe, was Melbourne School of Photography, and I worked in photography, and I was actually really more interested in art. So I went to part-time art classes in the 90s, and in 2003, as a mature age student, I was finally in a position I could go to university, and I wanted to major in painting. But because by then I was 38, I'd been reading art criticism and art theory and art history for 20 years for fun. So I was very quickly steered into art theory by the people there, which was a good thing. So I ended up doing a PhD, which was, yeah, so painting, it didn't go by the wayside, but um, I became more an academic art historian than what I intended to come out as when I went in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When did you come to Denmark?
I came to Denmark in March 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I got out of the cab and I nearly went arse over head out the front on black ice on the road. I went, okay, I need to be careful here.
Yeah. So you were met with the polar biome immediately. Immediately it was
So,
like, okay, we've arrived. This is Scandinavia. This is what you've heard about Vikings and polar bears and whatnot.
well, and the thing was, um, the thing I was most concerned about was long cold winters and lots of grey days because I'm prone to be depressive, and like winter blues is a real thing.
Yeah.
So that was something that had been on my mind as a not as a upfront anxiety, but as like a background thing. But I found that, see, in Australia, all the trees, well, none of the trees are deciduous. They don't
What
lose
does
their
that mean?
leaves in winter. They don't lose their leaves in winter, so they
Oh.
hold their foliage all year round. So to
Mm.
turn up here in winter and everything's bare, and then you get to April and colour starts coming up from the ground and everything. So it was the first time I kind of seen the life cycle of the seasons, and I had a few hard lessons of going out and going, oh my God, I forgot my gloves, I forgot my scarf. So those were lessons that I had to learn, but I actually enjoy seeing that cycle because I'd never experienced it before. I was like in the early 50s and came here.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you think it's a benefit or a detriment that you have many interests? Like writing poetry, do you think it makes sense to be a generalist or a specialist?
Say that again, as a writing poetry one.
Do you think it makes sense to be a generalist or a specialist? You have a lot of life experience and many interests. Has that benefited you or
Yeah, yes, it has. And because that's what I guess what I set out to do, to remain curious and live an interesting life. And so I followed my interests. I did the backpack thing through Europe when I was young and slept under upturned boats on riverbanks and in wheat fields and did all the romantic stuff from my literary heroes. Um, I went and I studied and I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree and got my PhD because I wanted to go through and prove that to myself. And that's sort of how I've approached everything. I had two cars written off in a hailstorm. I was thinking about this only a little while ago. It was 2 days before Christmas. I think it was 1995, and this monster hailstorm came through Inverell, the town which was my hometown as a kid, and I was living back there again. So it destroyed the roof on the house. Balls of ice this big was smashing through the windows. It smashed 16 windows. My children and I were huddled on the front veranda. It sounded like a freight train, and both my cars were written off.
Hmm.
And I didn't get what I expected they were worth from the insurance company. So I bought them back from the insurance company for a couple of $100 and went, okay, I need to fix them.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I went and enrolled in a TAFE course and I got a ticket in welding and a ticket in spray painting. So I'm the sort of person who like, okay, I will do that. What do I need to do? Right. Let's acquire that skill. So Is it a good thing? Is it a good thing not to specialize? I don't know. I sort of tend to have a specialty which has become unexpectedly art and cultural history.
Mm.
And that's where I'm at now. And I have a manuscript with University of Melbourne Press at the moment, so we'll see where that goes. But all the other stuff that I do is to stop me being out there vandalising phone boxes. I suppose
Sure.
it keeps me busy.
uh,
If I could find a phone box to vandalise these days, yeah.
yeah. I just feel like sometimes you hear a poet who has a very wide range, someone who's able to uh, be poetic about a wide array of subjects. Whereas when I look at my own texts, I certainly have a few favorites. You know, I love to write about my girlfriend. I love to write about
Can you write
logic.
those well?
What? Sorry?
Sorry, yeah. So the first one I said yes, and you write to that well.
Thanks.
And what was the second one?
Also logic, like trying to be some of the things that I thought were interesting in philosophy class. I try to write poetry about as well because it's the two sides of the mouth that meet in the middle in many ways, especially with deterministic logic or like propositional logic.
And because your background is in philosophy and I don't know, did you do like cinema studies? You're very and like you're
Yeah,
interested and you do script writing
yeah, I
and
did.
so
Yeah.
because that's your background, I mean it's inflected in your writing. I'm thinking of the Poetry Unleashed we did standing on the back of a trailer outside Superbooks. I think, and then we ended up on a pallet on the ground or something reading, and you
Mm,
read about the carrot, the cursor on the screen.
yeah.
Yeah, which is was basically a mini philosophical treatise
Yeah.
on the on the function and the frustration of the carrot on the
Yeah.
screen.
It was
So
especially born from the frustration that is felt uh, having to do the work. I feel like so much of my education, both in film, script writing, and philosophy, has sort of had has had these. There were certain things that were taken for granted. It was just assumed you knew how to sit down and write. Everything was about a theory after the fact, meaning that no one ever taught me how frustrating it could be to look at a blank page or to be irritated by the symbols that you haven't placed yourself but are there by default.
yeah, so the techno in a way the technology drives you. Yeah, that's
Yeah. And also, like,
which
how
was
do those first hurdles, those first steps, this is how you sell a film. Yeah, sure. Right. But what about some of the stages before that? How do I even get started?
yeah, yeah, that's a good call too. But just briefly back to your treatise on the carrot. I didn't know that the little is it a vertical or that way? It's that way.
It's vertical. Yeah.
It's the little cursor that sits behind the word that you're on or in front of the word that you're on. I didn't know it was called a carrot.
Yeah.
So that was a small epiphany for me anyway. But see, I still have to call Angelica and go in Word. Like I've written a 100,000 word thesis, and I still have to call people to go, "What's going on with the program?" Because I, I just the technology just yeah. So I'll suddenly go, "Why is it why has all my referencing suddenly disappeared?"
Yeah. Oh,
I've
so
just
you're not
missed it.
software savvy. I was looking for
Not at
something you
all.
didn't
Not
know
at
how to
all.
do. And it's
No,
football and software. I see now. I see now.
there's a there's a theme there somewhere. But no, I'm totally a babe in the woods, and like when my stepkids were a bit younger and still living here, I could go, what's going on here? But now it's poor Angelique. She goes, I've shown you how to insert a horizontal line. How many times?
Yeah.
Go here. Yeah. But that stuff just doesn't lock in with me. I can
Uh,
tell you when Andy Warhol was born or Jackson Pollock, but I can't
yeah.
tell you how I saved my document or what happened to it. And the only thing I've really learned is the Command S thing. because I had the experience of like 5 hours of hard work. This happened quite a few years ago. Wrote well into the night and lost it all, and I only needed to do that once
Yeah.
to go safe as you go.
Yeah. When did you start writing poetry? Do you remember a specific day or moment where you did?
I think most people probably begin writing poetry as an adolescent,
Yeah.
as you go through that difficult transitional stage where, like Rick Mail and poet, the people's poet, like I bet no one has ever felt as anguished as me. You know that transitional thing that we all go through.
Yeah.
But what happened? So yeah, I'm and I call it teen angst poetry. But I think that's a thing. I think it's almost a genre. So I wrote awful stuff as an adolescent. But what happened in terms of my interest in writing, in poetry, in literature, um, it came via music. And so when it comes to music, lyrics are really important to me. Um, and that's sort of what first grabbed me. And so by the time I got to year 11, so I was turned 17 that year, and a friend turned me on to the Doors, which I because Riders on the Storm was a song that had been in the background because it would be played on radio, so I was aware of it. But then the lyricism of Morrison, and from there began like I read an art. We didn't have the internet, but I remember finding a magazine with a feature on him. He'd only been dead like 9 or 10 years at the time, and so the writers he was interested in. So I began doing this thing of chasing the tail of what other people had been. So, for example, when I don't know how I found out about Henry Miller. It, it probably started with Kerouac. I'm raving, I know, because I read On the Road when I was in year 11 or 12, and so that which is and at 17, I think that's the perfect age to read something like On the Road.
Yeah.
But from so I knew that Morrison had read On the Road. He was into Nietzsche, and I remember trying to read Nietzsche at that age, and I wasn't cooked enough. I couldn't do it. But then the scandal around Bill Burr's Naked Lunch, what's going on there? So I checked that out, and Naked Lunch is a difficult read. Um, but then I ended up the scandal around Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer. What's going on there? And it turns out I really like Henry Miller. And then Miller was into Dostoevsky. Okay, so I need to read Dostoevsky. So I just kept chasing the tails of what other people had been
Yeah.
influenced by.
Yeah.
And
It's
you know,
fun how we have different people like us have different entry points, but we end up the same place. In the sense that
yeah,
you it sounds like you got to like these great literary classics through the Doors, like through rock and roll
and
magazines.
through an unlikely channel. Yeah.
I got it through comic books. I got it through comic books from the early 2000s, late 90s that were incredibly experimental and were also wearing their references on their sleeves. You know, it was stuff by Grant Morrison, who was also, still is, very much into the literary classics and stuff.
Okay. And I've heard you talk about this before and talk about comic culture. And it's something that never interested me even as a kid. So you probably just want to end the interview now. So it was nice talking to you.
Listen, that's fine. That's
But it's
fine.
but
Don't worry about it.
but it's, but it's interesting because, like you say, we've ended up in well, we're in the same room kind of thing, and we
Yeah,
met via the unlikely occurrence of a Russian ballerina starting an English-speaking poetry group
yeah.
in Copenhagen.
God bless
Right?
her. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did,
So it doesn't matter what the entry point is, and it can be straight down the line. It's from school to university and blah. And I didn't take that road. I was a father at 23, like Um, so and that's not the road I expected to take. That's
right.
where I was, but yeah, so I just had to do things around work and playing in bands and being a dad and working night shifts and reading in all my spare time.
Do you have a favorite writer?
Uh, that's like saying, do you have a favorite band or musician? Because it depends on the day of the week. I actually think Australia's Peter Carey, he's, he has to be Australia's greatest living writer, and he must be in his 80s now. But he's a great novelist
Yeah.
and funny. But I mean, he's a sophisticated novelist, but the stories are always, I can't. I was trying to sit. His first novel was called Bliss, and I still have the copy I bought in like 1982 or three or whatever over there. And I was looking at it the other day, sitting beside Angelica on the sofa, and I had to leave the room because I just ended up snorting with laughter, just the way he would drop these things in. So he's probably a favourite writer.
Okay. Do you have a
Yeah.
favorite word?
Favourite word. I've always liked autumnal.
Autumnal, as in happening
Autumnal.
during the fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't. You don't. You don't hear it in everyday conversation.
Well, and
I
who do
don't,
you
do you
know?
have a favourite word?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
have a
I'll
favourite?
get to it, but I want to dig into this autumnal thing. Who do you know who is has something to do with autumn? Who's born in autumn or who has autumn as the favorite season?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure why the word appealed. I'm not even sure where I first found it, but Henry Miller's actually good for picking up English words that are seldom used.
Yeah.
Um, I learned gamboge from Miller, like a yellow, virescent, a bright green. Like there's lots of things that I pick up and they just stay stuck in my head. But autumnal, I don't know. The word is poetic. I guess it has a poetic weight to it that I like.
Sure, I'm also, if I can wax philosophical about it for a minute, it clearly belongs to someone since it's an adjective since it's an adjective, it's someone who is autumnal, or it's a mood that's autumnal, or it
Yeah,
attaches, right?
and exactly. And I'm not sure what I know people who said that their favourite time of year is the autumn, but that's here here in Denmark when the leaves turn and stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen in Australia. Um, but I'm a summer person, I think. That's the weird thing about moving from one side of the planet to the other. So for over 50 years, every year my birthday was right in the middle of winter, 23rd of June. And I come here and it's right in the middle of summer and it stays light till 11 p.m. And it's just like, oh, wow, this is just brilliant.
Yeah.
What a turn of events. That's something I love about Denmark is the long summer days.
Yeah, that's almost the only thing that's worth liking weather
Well,
wise, right?
at the moment, because you in Odense, you guys recently had the hottest temperature ever recorded
Yeah,
in Denmark.
37. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're Australian temperatures, and yeah. Um, and the other thing about Denmark was that when I first came here, was not very many houses or apartments use blinds and curtains on the windows,
Mm,
which was totally, totally foreign to me. Pun
mm,
not intended, but I mean, um, so when you wake up and go to the bathroom at 4 a.m. and it's sunlight outside, but you can lay back down in the sun and go back to sleep. I didn't think I'd be able to do that, but I love that. I
yeah.
love that it's light when I get up and it's light, in the middle of summer, it's light till 10, 11 at night. And even then, as it gets dark, so a couple of times I've been coming home on the bike at that time, and the sky doesn't get dark. There's this transitional period where the sky goes this amazing indigo color, and it's only the sort of seen the sky do that.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I don't know whether anyone can explain it, but it's a trick of the light. And it's a little bit related perhaps to Den Blatima, the blue hour.
Yeah.
So the Skane painters in the 19th century who'd go right up to the northernmost tip of Denmark, and they would talk about it because there's a certain moment in the blue hour when the sea and the sky, the horizon, appears to disappear.
Yeah.
It blends together. So there's this magical moment where the sea and the sky are joined, which is rather poetic.
I'm realizing now, like a pattern throughout this conversation we've had about transitions. You've mentioned transitions quite a lot. You know, you mentioned adolescence at the beginning, and autumn also is sort of a transitional season. Winter and summer, you're kind of there, you're in it. Where with
Yeah,
fall and spring, you kind of have to survive it, or you're kind of waiting for it to get better almost.
yeah,
The
yeah,
blue
and
team is liminal as well, you know?
that's true. And you get this frustration as you're coming into spring. It's like you start to get all the tulips coming up out of the ground seem to be the first thing. So there's color coming up, and Copenhagen does this thing. Then you've got a few really fine days, and then bang, it'll turn again for 2 or 3 weeks and freeze your ass off. It's and then spring arrives.
Yeah.
But it's like it seems to do that every year. I remember when I first came here, in the like literally in the first days, I cycled into town beside Angelica, and we got to the lakes and got stopped by traffic, and I was freezing. And like I think I had tears. I always my eyes leak into cold.
Right.
Had tears like frozen on my cheek, and I looked at her and I said, "How come you don't have tears on your face?" And she went, "I'm from Austria."
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, it's an acclimatization thing, and it took a while, but I actually think I'm acclimatized now because now it gets to 25 or 26 degrees, and go, oh, yeah,
Sorry, you
which is actually quite
you're getting
a mild temperature.
the connection was a little fuzzy right there, so you were cut off there at the end. Do you mind repeating what you said at the end?
No, it's a secret. No, I was just saying that it's an acclimatization thing. So when I looked at Angelica on her bicycle and she wasn't crying, and I wasn't crying, it's just tears pour out of my face in the cold. And I said, "Why don't you have tears on your face?" She went, "I'm from Austria." Okay, it's just a matter of acclimatization. So now when it gets to 25 or 26 degrees, I'm like, oh, it's getting warm.
Yeah.
Whereas, when I lived in the Blue Mountains at Glenbrook, in the Blue Mountains, I had weeks at a time over 40 degrees. So like 42, 43 degrees. I'm out there watering the plants so they don't die. And
Yeah.
in fact, when I took Angelica to Lightning Ridge in 20, we were there New Year's Eve 2018 or 2019, I can't remember. And it was 50 degrees during the day. And we went to an artesian spa, a pool of artesian water, which is a constant 38 degrees. So we went to the pool of 38-degree water to cool down. So, but now 25 degrees does me in.
Yeah, same. You know, I never really got used to. I have no Italian genes in respects to handling heat. Like I just can't. I never get cold, but I just can't handle the heat.
Well, that's the other side of the acclimatization thing. I can't do what my stepson, for example, does. Like he'll be in shorts and it's like 2 degrees outside. It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Because it's spring. Yes, but
Yeah.
it's 2 degrees. But anyway, yeah.
You asked me about my favorite word, and I had a very illuminating conversation with Basil the last time I did this podcast, and who said that it's kind of weird to have a favorite word because they're a little bit meaningless when they're not together. You know, it's words make sense when they are grammatically constructed and fit into a larger structure. So that made me
So
think, like, what a weird question, you know, to ask people for the favorite word.
it is a weird question because it's trying to isolate like a single component. And I mean, here is where you and I risk dropping into a philosophical conversation. Then the whole podcast goes off on a tangent. But it's like the idea that spoken language, like what we're doing now, language is transparent. We're communicating, and words get thrown around, but they're transparent. But as soon as you write them down, this is Roland Barthes said this, that written language actually exists. It's rooted somewhere behind what language is.
Hmm.
And so what Basil said is kind of true. When you take a component, take one word out of a sentence and look at it, it becomes something different, uh, which I say is also a dangerous point, because then we could talk about, here we go, Roland Barthes' book, Writing Degree Zero, which I think was actually his first book, 1953. And he talks about how Arthur Rimbaud, the French symbolist poet, um, took language apart. And why Rimbaud is so important is because of he blew apart the connective tissue between words in writing. And so things did become singular. And Barthes talks about it in terms of frontality. So words became objects in his poetry. And I guess that's sort of what Basil was talking about. It's out of if you take a word and go, let's talk about this word. We could talk about my favorite Danish word.
Yeah, which is
Fantastisk.
fantastic.
What a great word.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes it great, do you think?
I don't know. There's just something joyous about it. So
Yeah.
when people ask me how I'm going, it's like fantastisk. Yeah.
Me personally, right now, I'm tripping on like two similar clumps of words. Is it a sentence, kind of? The first one is something that I've had in my head for years. The Spanish way of saying "with us," con nosotros.
Okay.
Con nosotros, with us. Us, usually in the languages I know, us tends to be a short word, but the Spaniards have nosotros, which is what, three syllables and many
Okay.
words to
But,
describe you and I, or we, you know. Um,
and is it just the way it rolls off the tongue, as it were? It's just the cadence of the thing that
it's the
appeals to you,
cadence,
or
but also the meaning with us, come with us,
yeah.
eat with us, whatever it is. With us, it's such a beautiful. As soon as you see her with us in a sentence, you know that it's good. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't really thought that deeply about it, I guess.
I don't know, but I totally understand what you mean. Like, come with me. I'm going to lunch. Come with me.
Yeah,
Like,
it's communal. It's
yeah,
inviting
that's
with
the thing.
us, con
It's
nosotros,
friendly.
and sorry,
It's friendly. There's
it's
something
very
open
friendly.
and friendly about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And similarly, I've really been on a Bob Marley and the Wailers trip lately. I love reggae. It's absolutely one of my favorite music genres. Um, and they got a song called, uh, I think it's "We Got a Date." I think,
Okay.
and then
I'm not.
parentheses, rocket baby, all night, rocket baby, all night. But
I'm not a huge reggae fan, but I do know a lot of Mali, and I know it
yeah,
when I hear it. Yeah.
but in the song, they keep repeating the phrase "We got to get together, babe," and I just love that. That's like, yeah, 100%. We got to get together. Again, that's the
Yeah.
cadence, the syllables, the sort of
Yeah,
the
and
harsh consonants.
it becomes the staccato
Yeah,
thing of it as well if it's repeated.
I
Yeah.
love staccato rhythm. I really do it, and
Well,
like the
yeah,
harsh syllables, love it.
and it becomes hypnotic, and yeah, and that's how language, as writers we play with language, but language plays with us as well.
Yeah,
Kind of what you're saying.
yeah.
That's why I struggle with Danish. I come from a country where we speak one language, even though at the time of invasion in 1788 there were 250 Aboriginal languages.
Wow.
But Italian for me,
Yeah.
hearing people speak Italian is there's something so musical about it. It's like I get hypnotized by that, and I don't know what they're talking about, but I find it mesmerizing.
Yeah.
How you speak Italian, being half Italian? Yeah,
I speak it fluently. Yeah, my mom forced my brother and I to go to Italian kindergarten and Italian school on Saturdays. So I have like the almost the classic Catholic
but
upbringing, you know.
that's a good thing. In the At the end of the day, I'm sure there
At
were
the end of the
moments
day,
when
I hated it. I hated only having a 1 day weekend, but ultimately, it's the best gift my mother's ever given me.
well, that's it. No, I was going to say, I'm sure you and your brother pissed and moaned about it, but you speak fluent Italian.
We speak
And
fluent Italian as someone who does not live in Italy but speaks it with his mom would, right? So there's lots of slang, there's lots of like contemporary vernacular that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but I sound Italian when I speak Italian. It's not because I sound like a second generation kid.
no, and
Um,
that's a good thing. And it's like my stepchildren, half Austrian, and they speak fluent. And they had, experiences at school. 'Cause they went to the German school
yeah, I
here, St.
see.
Peter. And I know that Carolina, my stepdaughter, there were times as she got toward the end of school before she changed to St. Anna, where the German teacher would be something and would pause and look around at Carolina and go, "Is that right?"
Right.
Because she's so fluent in German because her mother because her mother's Angelica. Of course, she speaks perfect German. Yeah,
Yeah. I took Italian as one of my primary subjects in high school as well, and it was a similar situation. I think my teacher was a bit too arrogant and too like self-centered to want to ask the kids about whether it's right or wrong, but I could easily skip class. I mean, I could.
and that's the same thing that my stepchildren say that their German was just a given 12. It was
Yeah.
always a good mark. They didn't have to try very hard because they
Yeah.
knew it inside out. Yeah. And it still does my head in, like the fact that you speak three languages at least. Angelica speaks three languages fluently and two others conversationally.
Yeah.
And I'm flat out speaking English, mate.
Barely. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I'm lucky I'm communicating at all. Yeah.
Um so I was thinking whether you had some poetry you'd like to read for us, either your own or something that you admire or want to share with us.
Um, all right. I came prepared. I have a few things. What should we do? How about I do a really short one by someone else? No, no. Now I'm just wasting podcast time, aren't I?
Don't worry about it. I mean, the six people who
All right.
usually listen to this are used to it, so don't worry about it. But if you just
Okay.
like to introduce it and
No, I'll give you a poem by Michael Dransfield. So I came to Michael Dransfield, who died in 1973 at the age of 24. So he's like Australia's tragic poetic figure. And I was introduced to Dransfield's work by my 11 and year 12 English teacher who had a huge influence on me. Rob Macaulay, if you see this, it's because of you. So Mr. Macaulay was the English teacher who recognized that I was good at writing and that I was interested in it. And so he would bring me books and lend them to me, and I'd give them back. And so I came to Dransfield through him. But he died of an overdose. Well, actually, they don't know what he injected. He injected something into his neck and
oof.
ended up in a coma for 3 weeks, and he was brain dead. And anyway, so he was a junkie. He was a drug poet. And one of the first poems I ever by him was this, and it's just called Flying. It's very short. So, Flying by Michael Dransfield. I was flying over Sydney in a giant dog. Things looked bad. That's it. Um, yeah, and so that appealed to many things, and the absurdity of it and the hallucinatory. It's just a simple. And in fact, an Australian artist called Sean Gladwell did a bus shelter artwork with just that poem on it. I don't know, 10 years ago in Sydney. So it's a well-known little poem. Do you want me to do mine or?
I think this was great. You did one. It was very short. I find that to be very appealing. Well done. Why did you choose this? Was it
Because
was it obvious? Was this your first choice?
yeah, it probably was because it was the hook that got me into Dransfield, and like he was prolific. I think he left us over 1,000 poems. He was dead at 24.
Hmm.
Um, but he was in Australian literature. There's the generation of '68, so 1968, and the people who were writing around there are considered sort of like as the Parnassus circle of poets were in Paris in the 1870s, the generation of 68 poets in Australia are considered like this consolidated group. And Michael Dransfield was one of them, and Vicky Vidakas was another who I really like, and Robert Adamson. And I met and became friends with Robert Adamson. Um, so it was a toss up between an Adamson poem and a Dransfield poem. But it was Michael Dransfield's Flying, the one I just, flying over Sydney in a giant dog. And whatever it was about it, the absurdity of it, or it just hooked me. And I remember it hooking me when I was in year 11. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. It's obtuse and it's dreamy and hallucinatory, but it's also just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do you have anything for sale right now there?
Sorry, you just went all glitchy on me. What happened?
Do you have anything for sale? You had like a poetry book, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if many copies left, but so I have a pile of books there. So I published that last year, which is Invitation to a Mass Extinction Event, which was just a collection of prose and whatnot. And
Yeah.
since then, of course, we've published Eric, Eric who's a Danish, Tanzanian-born Danish poet.
Yeah, he was on the
Um,
podcast as well, yeah.
yeah, a great guy, a mountain of a man.
Yeah.
The tallest friend that I have.
Yeah.
And Toki Sunak, comedian, also published him. And at some stage, we're going to publish some of your their plays, aren't they? Not they're not screen. Yeah,
They're stage
plays.
plays. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, you've shared, yeah, shared that with my daughter who works for Irish National Theatre. So at some stage, we'll get together. I think you said there's 3 in the series, or
There's 3, yeah, it's a
when I get
trilogy.
more organised.
Yeah, and then but I'll let you know. I have been
Yeah.
working on the other parts for a minute. I've been working on other stuff. But will you
Hey,
be there on the Sorry, what?
we're all crazy busy, I know.
Do you have anything in the Poetry Unleashed anthology, which is very excitingly coming out on the 14th of August?
Yes, it is. And yes, I have 2 works in there.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So I was involved in the publication of that as well. So I know that Arena's very happy with it, and yeah, we're having the launch for it on the date that you just said. What was it?
The 14th of August.
On the 14th. Okay.
And
Yeah.
where's the venue? Do you remember the venue? I can't come, unfortunately, which is why I'm asking
No,
you.
I realise that. No, and I can't even remember the venue. A culture house somewhere in town.
Yeah.
I haven't been. I know that I haven't been there before, but I can't remember what it's called.
Well, I'll put a link to the address and the time of the event at the
Yeah, share that information, and
yeah.
that's going to be a fun night, and people will um, read from their freshly published anthology, which will be fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Darryl, for coming and
You're very
talking to us.
welcome. Yeah, and have a great afternoon and evening.
You too. Give my love to Angelica and the cats.
Absolutely, and give ours to Mia.
Yeah, I will.
All right, mate. Thank you.
See you, my friend. Bye.
See ya.